Aloha everybody, welcome to my backyard here in Wahiawa, where it's just beginning to drizzle and beginning to rain. But I wanted to create this video for you folks today and share with you my experiences with voices that come to me in many different places and during different time periods. And these voices, as far as their sources, I'm not too sure where they're coming from and why they're joining me, but a lot of times they come to me, especially when I'm pretty emotional or in the middle of making a very important decision in my life. And the first event I want to share with you is a very unusual one because I had gone up to the North Shore to visit with my niece who lives in Hauula, and that's my oldest brother's youngest daughter. So I spent time with them, had a really good visit, and on my way home I started thinking about my brother, and my brother has passed. And so as I started thinking more and more about him, I began to think about the times, especially when we were up in Utah together and we were singing and our families were performing, doing Polynesian shows around the state. And it was the first time, really, that my brother and I got to sing together. And so as I came into Waimea Bay and exited Waimea Bay, I started singing. And some of the songs that I started to sing was songs that we sang, He Punahele for one. And that seemed to be our signature song. So as I started singing He Punahele, and just to myself, and eventually I started voicing it, as I started getting into the chorus, as soon as I got into that, a second voice joined in and started singing with me in the same harmonizing that my brother did. And as I listened to it, it was my brother singing with me. And so we finished the whole song and I started crying and passing through Haleiwa came up and I started crying because I was missing my brother, and I thanked my brother for coming and joining in with the song. And so I continued driving home and just thinking more about him. Then when I came into Wahiawa and I turned up California Avenue, and as I started passing the park and the Honganji, I began thinking about my brother and say, oh wow, I want my brother to come in and join with me one more time before I go home in the same song. So I started singing the song again. Right when I said that, a second voice joined in, and this time it wasn't coming from the back seat, but it was coming from inside of me. And the voice, right when I started passing the botanical gardens, that's when the voice joined in. And this voice that joined in was really raspy. And I'm jumping and stuff because my voice was carrying two sounds, one my regular voice and the second this really raspy sound, and wasn't pretty at all. It scared me. And so I stopped singing and sped home and came home and talked to Al about it and say, somebody came in and ruined my duet with my brother. So that was my experience with having another voice kind of like come in and join me. Now I had a second experience of a voice coming to me And again, this was me in the middle of deciding what I was going to do when I retired from teaching. And I had a lot of different options. Uh, because of my skills that I had developed over time, and some of you folks have been seeing, who's been watching my videos, know that I do predictions on games, and that's only a small portion of what I actually do. When I walk into a casino, there's a whole different skill set that comes out when I walk into a casino. But anyway, I wanted to retire in Las Vegas and take advantage of my skill sets and make a lot of money. So that's where I was. And one day when I was driving home from school on H2, right before I came to the cutoff to Mililani Mauka, there was a voice that came from in the back of my car, and the voice told me, "Imaikalani, go see a kumu." And I turned in the back and I looked through my window and stuff. I looked through my mirror and there was nobody sitting in the back, but this voice came clear to me. And I says, "What?" It says, "Go see a kumu and humble yourself before her." And so I looked at I was confused, and I says, "I'm not gonna do that. Why do you want me to do that?" And all of a sudden I felt this finger kind of like come by my ear and flick my ear from behind, pack. And he says, "Never mind. You go and do what I tell you to do." And so I said, "Okay, that's fine." So I drove home, and the kumu that I had at that time, I was taking papaoli classes from one of my neighbors up in the street, not too far from here. And she was my kumu at that time, and that was the only female kumu I had. So I passed my house, and Elle saw me pass by, and she called me on the phone, and I didn't answer because I knew I had to do this. And so I drove up to my kumu's place, and the interesting thing about it is that right when I pull up, she was already sitting inside the garage waiting for me, and she was expecting someone to come by. So I came out of my car, and I told her, this voice came to me, and the reason why I'm here is that this voice told me to humble myself before you. And so I knelt down and humbled myself, and I basically said, "I'm your kawa. I'm your slave." Okay? And so we embraced each other, and I didn't understand why I was doing this. And after I left, I went home, and the voice came back to me and says, "Good job, and this is going to open doors for you." So by the time I reached home and stuff, kind of thinking about what I wanted to do, I talked to Elle about this incident, and she says, "Well, take a look at what you really, really want to do." And it's really interesting that this voice knew way, way ahead of me that my plans to move up to Vegas was going to be scrapped. I had a change of heart, and I decided to take on the role of kahu more seriously and involve myself, immerse myself in healing and helping others heal. In the process of working this and working my mission and my goal, I discovered that 99.9% of my clients are women. So having this spirit come to me, saying that I needed to humble myself in front of my kumu, was symbolic of my call to help women. And not all of us get our calling in the same way, but this was a clear message from my ancestors on where they wanted my life direction to head into. And I hope you folks enjoyed this. And, if you enjoy what I share with you folks, please share it with others and subscribe, okay? Mahalo, and see you folks next week. Bye-bye.